The Perfect Father by John Glass, a true crime story. This horrifying true crime murder happened just above the Oklahoma Panhandle in the state of Colorado about 6 years ago. The father was an ordinary father just like any other, yet no one expected he would do such a thing to the people he seemed to love. These are important people to know from the novel. Chris Watts is the murderer and the husband of Shannon Watts and father of Bella and Celeste, and the baby that Shannon was going to have. Shannon Watts is the wife of Chris Watts, mother of Bella and Celeste, and the baby on its way. Bella is Chris and Shannon Watts' first daughter, while Celeste is the second daughter of theirs. And Shannon, Bella, and Celeste were the three murdered by Chris Watts. More people to know. Nicole Kessinger. She was romantically involved with Chris Watts while he was still married to Shannon. Randy and Cindy Watts are parents of Chris Watts, and they were involved a lot in the lives of the two little girls while Chris and Shannon had like arguments, and while they weren't doing too good as parents. Nicole Atkinson is Shannon's good friend. She was the one who actually called Shannon that morning when she did not, when she was already deceased. And she let other people know that she hadn't heard from her. And she had just gone on that business trip with her when, like, right before the murder happened. Frank and Sandra are parents of Shannon Watts. The plot. The tragic crime novel is a roller coaster of emotions. You read deep into the lives of Chris and Shannon, discovering their ups and downs with one another. Behind the screen of social media, things aren't always perfect for the perfect family. How's the book structured? There are 3 parts to the novel. Part 1 is usually describing the introduction of each of them, their backgrounds, how they were as children growing up, and where they lived, how they met, what they did. And then in part 2, we get details of things that happened leading up to the crime. And this is where we find out that Chris is having he's having interactions with Nicole. And part 3 focuses on the investigation and things that happened after the crime occurred. John Glatt uses the technique of transitioning from perspectives of different people involved in the life of the Watts family in all 42 chapters. Chapters alternate between Chris, Shannon, both of their parents, friends of theirs, business partners, detectives, and things like that. The novel is told in the third-person point of view, and that's a picture of John Glatt. What is the book about? The tragic case of Chris Watts, the father of 2 young girls, Bella and Celeste, and husband to Shannon Watts, who had always been a good father and husband, changes out of the blue. He gets a girlfriend on the low and that causes him to change a lot. After his wife comes back from a business trip for Thrive, what she worked for, he decided to murder his 2 daughters and the mother of his babies. family starts to get worried because they haven't heard of Shannon on any of her social media or anything, and that's when everything starts to unravel. And that's a picture of what we come to find out, where he had taken his wife and the 2 little girls in the oil fields. Okay, this is like a really good quote I found. Investigators believe that Watts began carefully planning out what he was going to do the previous Friday. After learning about the leak of Survey 319, it provided the perfect opportunity. His decision to use one of the joint credit cards to buy dinner for Nikki Kessinger on Saturday night, according to police, showed he had moved past his marriage for a new start with her. And this shows us that he had that intention to just be with Nikki and not with his wife. It seemed like he didn't care at this point. Personal connection. This novel reminded me of In Cold Blood by Truman Capote because it was a true crime murder that included an investigation. They both go into detailed descriptions of the real life crime and have an impact on the people/individuals around them. I just feel like any true crime murder mystery case would connect with this, but I don't really read or have read about documentaries or heard of any true crime things, but yes. And so I guess any true crime murder novels, podcasts would kind of connect with this book. These are images. Okay, so starting from the left, those are the 2 little girls, his 2 daughters, and then that's with his wife at the bottom with Shannon and his 2 little girls. And then those are that's at the oil fields where he took them. That's him in jail at the courthouse, actually. And then up to the right top, that's Chris and Shannon, and right under it's all 4 of them. And most of these actually 2 of these pictures I got off her Facebook that you could actually go look at. Academic response. Narrative style novel that is easily readable. It was straightforward and had detailed descriptions that made it easy for us to follow through the novel. It was emotionally challenging, which was the hardest thing about this. Other than that, it was so easy to read. Just because of the details of the murder. And if you're more not into this, then it's emotional. It's clear and simple, even though it's a tough topic, like I just said. The author, John Glatt, uses suspense, making you want to keep reading it, or in other words, keep you hooked. Recommendations and final thoughts. If you are interested in true crime murder documentaries or podcasts, then this book is for you. You get to read through the perspectives of people who were involved in the life of the Watts family and get background information. Other than reading about the devastating case, it was an amazing book. Definitely recommend to those who enjoy reading about true events that come with mystery and suspense.